Hello YouTube! Today I've got a little bit of a different video for you. This year, thankfully, I've kind of gotten back into reading, and I've actually managed to read a few books, and I randomly stumbled upon this book called The Hating Game, and it even says here that there's a movie made about it. It says, now a major motion picture. So I was like, well, this has to be good, right? They made a movie about it, so it has to be good, right? Yeah. I thought this would be an easy, light read, enemies to lovers in an office-type setting. Turns out this doesn't even, mainly take place in an office. I also have to say that I'm a person that usually isn't super picky with books. I'll give 5 stars on Goodreads so easily. Literally most of my reads on Goodreads have got 4 to 5 stars. This book, after my first read, I gave it 2 stars, which as a people pleaser is so little. After rereading this book for this video, I've now given it 1 star. The overall rating of this book somehow on Goodreads is 3.9 stars, and I genuinely do not understand how. But I don't want to sway your opinions just yet, so let's get into it. Let me tell you all about The Hating Game. So the book starts off by introducing us to the main character. Obviously, her name is Lucy Hutton, and she's an executive assistant to the co-CEO of Bexley and Gaiman. I actually don't know how to say this, but it doesn't really matter, guys. So Gaiman Publishing, whatever. It used to be its own firm before it was forced to unite with Bexley Books to avoid being shut down. So now the company has 2 CEOs and, alas, 2 assistants to the CEO, Lucy, as established, and Joshua, who is the love interest, of course. And since this is an enemies to lovers, technically, the 2 are sworn enemies. So Lucy's described as someone whose style kind of gives off sexy librarian and who has an obsession with collecting Smurfs. And the 2 of them share an office by themselves. We get immediately introduced to one of the games they play, the mirror game, where they basically just copy what the other person does. There are a few of these games mentioned, which is why the book is called The Hating Game, because the game part is an aspect that is just a red string all through the book. There is, other than the mirror game, there is the staring game, where they just stare at each other. The HR game, keeping a log of things worth mentioning to HR. The You're Just So game, where basically one of them just goes, "You're just so, never mind." And the goal of that is kind of to strike up a convo, I guess. I don't really get it. The first time I cringed at this book was on page 4, didn't take long, because Lucy lets us know that her password is, all in caps, "I hate Joshua forever," and the A at the end being an at. Which just feels like something a 13-year-old would do, not an adult woman that genuinely dislikes her colleague. Later in the book, she lets us know that she changed her password to die minus Josh die exclamation point, which is of course necessary to mention. We learn that Lucy is an absolute people pleaser and always gives extensions to deadlines, even when it means more work for her. Joshua is obviously the opposite and doesn't care what people think of him, and he's like dark and broody, blah blah blah. We also learn his nickname for her, which is Shortcake, because her parents own a strawberry farm, and she's very cool with this fact. She's proud of her parents, but at the same time, she's also embarrassed to be seen as the farm girl, I guess, especially, of course, by big city boy Joshua. His nickname is Dr. Josh, not by her, but by his boss. And she mentions in the beginning it's probably because he's so clinical, but we learn more about these nicknames later. The first chapter ends with him offering her a ride, where I'm just like, why? You're supposed to be enemies. But okay. But moving on, the next day, I believe, Lucy snoops through Joshua's things while he's not in the room, and she describes his desk as the male version of hers, which kind of just means she is pink post-its and he is blue ones, because of course that's boy and girl colors, and she is lipstick and he is mints, because apparently fresh breath is the male equivalent to makeup. She also finds his planner and finds that he has a bunch of scribbles in them, which she takes a picture of it to try and figure out the code, but we actually don't learn what this is all about until like the very end of the book, so keep that in mind. And now at the end of chapter 2, we're basically at flirting level already. They say they're not, of course, but it is just insanely obvious they don't hate each other. Next on, there is a big meeting, and Lucy notices a cute guy called Danny, who we learn is leaving the company, and she somehow didn't notice him being cute until now, and she flirts with him a bit. Then we find out there's this big promotion coming up, and either Lucy or Josh can get it. Although it is also open to external applicants, but let's be real, that's just never gonna happen. Obviously, this is a big plot point since now they don't only dislike each other personally, but they are actively competing for a job. We're at chapter 4, and the two are playing a game Lucy calls How You Doing, where they just act all nice and friendly to each other. And it feels incredibly weird to read because it just feels like silly banter. And honestly, if Lucy really hated Josh so much, why would she be playing this game with him? It just feels weird. I wish at this point in the book they would still actually hate each other, but it just doesn't feel like they do to begin with. Joshua makes a comment about her clothes being weird retro costumes, which then prompts her to wear a short black dress, fishnets, and red heels to work the next day. Incredibly professional, of course, especially with that promotion coming up, am I right? She falls asleep thinking about how much this will annoy Joshua, which then leads to her having a dirty dream about him. So she walks into work the next day still thinking about the dream and in her ridiculously short dress, and when Joshua asks her if she's dressed like that for a date, of course she lies and tells him yes. She then actually tells him that she had a dirty dream, but changes it and doesn't tell him who it was about. Now at this point, they're just flirting. Why would you ever tell a guy you dislike something so incredibly personal? Like, it just feels so random. She also leaves him a sticky note with a lipstick kiss before walking away to actually secure that date she bragged about. And this is where that team meeting from earlier is important, because she obviously goes and asks Danny, the cute guy she never noticed before. Of course, he agrees, and they agree to meet later at a bar. The workday's over, and Lucy gets ready to leave for a date, and of course, Joshua has to ask how she will get there, and to then offer her a ride. What a rude, unlikable guy. Wow, you could only hate him. They get in the elevator together, and when Joshua pushes the emergency button and the elevator stops, Lucy, of course, thinks this is the point where Joshua is going to kill her. Obviously, he seems like he hates you so much this far. But instead, he picks her up, sets her down on the handlebar in the elevator, and they make out. Of course, this has to be labeled the kissing game. And I know quote from the book, "The aim of the game is to do this for the rest of your life. Screw human civilization and all it entails. This elevator is home now. This is what we do now. Do not fucking stop." Now I need you to see that this is how far we're into the book at this point, and they are full on making out, and she does not want to stop. So you might wonder, what's the point of continuing to read now? Because usually the point of an enemies to lovers is to kind of build up the tension and for them to want each other but kind of be held back by a dislike or something else. Meanwhile here, it doesn't even feel like they hate each other. So to keep the book going for another 300 pages, of course there needs to be something else happening. But we'll get to that in a bit. Anyways, they get out of the elevator and into his car, like any enemies really. She accuses him of trying to mess her up before a date, to which he goes, "Oh yeah, your fake date." And she then drops the bomb that it's not a fake date and that she's meeting with Danny, which absolutely shocks Joshua. But he still drives her to the bar, and she tells him that she would want to be friends with him, to which he replies, "We'll never ever be friends." Lovely man. Lucy arrives for a date with Danny, and she is a complete mess, understandably so. Danny is super lovely and compliments her, and it results in her having to excuse herself and going to the bathroom to cry, basically because she doesn't get a lot of compliments, and all her life is her work, and she works with a man that makes her feel pathetic when she's a people pleaser and all she wants is for people to like her. Now, of course, Joshua turns up to give her her coat that she left in his car and is surprised to find her crying, and she tells him that he has ruined her, and he seems taken aback by that. Lucy wakes up the next morning, still emotionally exhausted, but we learn that her date with Danny went well. She stays home from work and instead, of course, thinks about Joshua. She then gets a delivery, and it turns out someone has sent her a bouquet of red roses with a note attached saying, "You're always beautiful." And now I cannot possibly believe that any reader at this point believes these roses could be from Danny and not very obviously Joshua, because he also very clearly does not hate her. Lucy's back at the office a day later and actually gets an apology from Joshua, and they agree not to speak of the kiss again. He asks her about her date, and she said it was good and that Danny is a nice guy, which you will find out is a terrible thing to say to Joshua. We are not fans of nice men in this book. Green flags all around, am I right? The office now sets off to do some team building by going paintballing. And Josh and Lucy end up on the same team, forced to work together. Somehow, during the game, the two of them end up chatting, and Joshua shares that both of his parents are doctors and that he has a brother. Joshua also shoots Danny, getting him eliminated when they weren't even on opposing teams. Lucy ends up getting shot down a bunch trying to cover Joshua, but of course, he ends up switching the roles and protecting her. And he also snaps at the guy that went a bit overkill on the trigger. Lucy's now in a lot of pain and isn't feeling very well, which only gets worse as the day continues. She throws up during the last game and is very much feeling dizzy and weird. Of course, Joshua, like the enemy he is, doesn't attack her, but helps her get the paintball gear off. And as Lucy's state gets worse, Joshua is clearly concerned about her. He drives her home, again, and goes into her apartment with her. She's got a crazy fever, so a lot of this part of the book kind of feels like a fever dream as well as you're reading it. But Joshua stays with her and takes care of her, getting medication, laying her out fresh clothes, even changing her clothes. She wakes up at one point to find a doctor with her and Joshua in a room, and he checks her symptoms, and I should mention that during this examination, Lucy is sitting in between Joshua's thighs on the bed. She realizes that the doctor is in fact Josh's brother, Patrick, and she, for some reason, tells them she thinks Josh is better looking. Lucy then overhears a conversation between the two brothers and how Joshua hasn't RSVP'd to Patrick's wedding. And we also learn that he didn't turn up to the engagement party. And now this conversation sets up a major plot point in the book. But reading it, I immediately knew what it would be about. So let me actually read you this part fully. Patrick is thinking the same thing. RSVP right now. Mindy needs to know, for such minor details as catering, seating. I'm busy at the moment, Josh tries, but Patrick cuts him off. Imagine how it'll look if you don't turn up. Josh says nothing, and Patrick perseveres. I know it's going to be hard. You expect me to walk in there like nothing happened? Patrick is confused. But you'd bring Lucy, wouldn't you? I ponder this in the dark. Why on earth would it be hard for Joshua to attend his own brother's wedding? She's not my girlfriend. We work together. Josh sounds irritated. I wish that didn't give me such a punch in the gut, but it does. You could have fooled me. Yeah, well, she's more on the market for a nice guy, aren't they all? There's a loaded silence. How many more times do I have to say no more times? Josh is the king of shutting down a conversation. There's more silence. I can almost hear them both looking at my bedroom door. Patrick's voice is lowered now, and I can't hear anything except Huffy arguing. Hating myself desperately, I climb silently out of the bed, careful to keep my feet in the shadows. I'm a disgusting little snoop. I'm asking you to come to my wedding and make your mother happy. Make me happy. Mindy's stressed as hell, thinking there's some sort of family feud happening. Josh sighs, heavy and defeated. Fine. So that's a yes? Yes, please, Patrick. I'd love to come to your wedding. I accept your gracious invitation. Yes, that. I'll mark you down with a +1 if she survives the night. Now, guys, if you heard this and you haven't guessed the reveal, I'm incredibly sorry to spoil it for you. But for me, it was so obvious that Patrick must be with an ex-girlfriend of Joshua's, and that's why he's all upset about the nice guys in the world, because his nice guy brother stole his girlfriend. Josh continues to care for Lucy. She thirsts over him. She tells him about her parents' strawberry farm. He says he never thought less of her because of her upbringing. And guys, is this the point where I should bring up that growing up on a strawberry farm sounds really cool? And I don't think any adult will really give a shit about it. I feel like this story wouldn't have annoyed me as much would it have been in a high school setting, because at least the way they act would be excusable by their age. But anyway, Josh kisses her on the cheek and he holds her when he asks if there's a way for them to get out of this situation. Bro. But anyways, Josh kisses her on the cheek and he holds her when he asks if there was a way for him to get them out of this whole mess with a promotion, if she would want him to do it, to which she replies, of course I would. The next morning, her fever is broken and she pretty much kicks Joshua out of her apartment. Lucy also admits to herself that she, in fact, does not hate the man. Shocker. Still not even halfway through the book, by the way. Monday morning, she gets a call from Danny, to which her first thought is, maybe he has a flat tire. Right. Surely he's not calling because you're kind of dating, and he saw you weren't feeling well at the work event you were at together. Apparently he tried calling while she was sick, but Joshua picked up and didn't pass the messages on. Of course he didn't, because while he cares about her, he's still a sucky character, and you'll see that both of them are super jealous over someone they very much are not dating and don't have any rights to be jealous over. Not saying they're not allowed to feel this way, but again, they are adults, and they can choose not to act on this jealousy. Danny drives Lucy to work, and he got her daisies. Josh is an ass to Danny when they get there, and when Lucy sits down at her desk, she sees a singular red rose lying there. She now finally connects the dots that it was Josh that sent her the roses after her first date with Danny, and asks him why he didn't tell her it was him. He's all pissed about her showing up with Danny though, and she says I don't know, he's nice. Terrible move, of course. How dare she call him a nice guy? Now, Joshua is continuing to be a bitch towards her, and she's trying desperately to make him be nice to her again, which ends up in her saying that she'll drive him to the wedding. We find out that the wedding is on Saturday, because everything in this book happens in an insanely short amount of time, but luckily Lucy has no plans on the weekend. Who could have guessed? She ends up dragging him into the janitor's closet to confront him and tells him she wants to be friends or something. She also lets us know that he smells really good and she would like to put his soap in her lingerie drawer. You know, normal thoughts. They start the or something game, aka they've got a situationship now. Joshua refuses to kiss her and instead tells her to kiss Danny that night and then only come back to Josh if the elevator kiss was better. He says he doesn't want to be her little experiment for her to choose a nice guy Danny in the end. The main plot point is so incredibly obvious, guys. Come on. She tells him that if the or something game involves sex, that it'll be a one-time thing and that's it. Let me repeat. She will basically kill off her thing with Danny if he's not a better kisser to sleep with Joshua once. So she goes on a date with Danny, and the author really seems to try to make the reader think that Danny is a bad choice for Lucy, but they do still kiss, and Lucy says here, his mouth tips mine open a little, although he keeps his tongue in his mouth like the gentleman he is. I put my hand on his shoulder. His frame, which looked so fit and muscular at first glance, feels as light and insubstantial as chicken bones. I bet he couldn't even lift me off the ground. They agree to be friends, and Lucy drives to see Joshua. They make out outside of his apartment, but thinking of more makes Lucy literally run back to her car. She is running away. And then the next chapter opens with her saying that Josh has got her under his arm like a newspaper. What do you mean? Basically, he says she needs to see his apartment so they're even, and she does, and one of the important things mentioned here is that the only wall painted in a bright color is his bedroom wall, and that it is a pale shade of blue. This doesn't seem important now, but trust me, it will be later. They hold hands, and that's all that happens, but apparently Joshua gets offended or hurt by Lucy joking she only wants him for his body. He doesn't just straight up tell her that, though. Who do you think he is? A non-toxic man that can properly communicate his feelings? Please, this is not a fantasy book. The next day, Joshua isn't at work, and Lucy misses him oh so dearly. She prepares for her interview with her boss, and when she goes home, she calls Joshua. They agree that she should come over, and now we get a scene that made me cringe so hard, I had to take a break from reading. So Joshua is driving to his apartment from the gym. Lucy is driving over from her apartment, and when she arrives, she sees him in the elevator and does what anyone in her position would do. She jumps and clings to his front, wrapping her arms and legs around him. Basically, hold on tight spider monkey in reverse. And now you might say, Hannah, that's not cringe. You're so dramatic. It's cute. But listen, because you'd think this is her greeting hug, and surely she'll let go after a few seconds. No. They take the elevator up. She's clinging. He walks to his apartment. She's stuck to him like glue. He's taking his shoes off. It's getting weird now. He's filling up a glass with water. She puts her ear to his throat to hear him swallow. This is supposed to be a woman in her late 20s, by the way. Also, dare I say, This whole time, Joshua is supposed to be this cool, sarcastic guy, but of course, this is totally okay for him. How are we not finding this incredibly weird? You guys are not close like that either. Like, what? This whole scene just feels so random and out of character. Mostly out of character for Josh, because Lucy is just weird in the entire book, low-key. And I love my weird girls, don't get me wrong. This, however, is a whole nother thing. He slaps her ass and hurts his hand because, of course, she has a Smurf in her back pocket. She then sees Joshua has a whiteboard with a meal plan and thinks to herself, what a freak he is. Yeah, right, monkey girl, he's the freak. Once again, they do not sleep together because Josh says she needs more time or she would be weird afterwards and freak out. Valid concern. He makes food and they do a little doctor roleplay, I guess. And they play some little imagination games and she asks what he would take with him on a remote island. He chooses a knife, a tarpaulin, and her. And I don't know if I said that word right. Tarpaulin? Hopefully I did. I googled it, guys. If anyone's wrong, it's Google. She says she would curse him for taking her away from civilization, hair care, and lipstick. Yeah, those are the things I'd be missing too. Who needs good food and a warm bed, am I right? They make out, like, a lot, but we're all collectively being edged, and Josh stops it before it turns into something more. I mean, there's gotta be some plotline that keeps you reading. Whether waiting for them to have sex is a good plotline, I will leave up to you to decide. At work, Joshua's boss tells him they need to talk strategy, and he says that he needs no help beating Lucy. She's now incredibly upset over this. Josh tries to explain it was an act, and it came out wrong because he got mad his boss was looking at Lucy weird. He's like an established creep. And he's actually wanting to talk it through, but Lucy leaves to have a work talk and coffee with bestie Danny. She tells Danny not to mention what they're working on to Joshua, and then has a, oh, he's right behind me, isn't he, moment, because Josh also appears in that cafe. Danny says that as her friend, he's telling her Josh is in love with her. Well, no shit. Joshua's still jealous of Danny, yada yada yada, it's getting boring. Josh and Lucy are practically fighting in the literal Starbucks across from work. He's mad Lucy doesn't want people to gossip about them. He also says to bring her dress for the wedding on Friday because they have to drive there, and he needs to help his mom the night before the wedding. She has a little freak out over this, but he says he needs her there as moral support, as promised, and that he can't show up without a date. She's confused about this, but still agrees to go with him. The workday isn't super interesting. Josh and his boss fight, Lucy is anxious, and then after work, they leave for the wedding. On the car ride, they talk about the paintball games again, and Lucy says, "You should see my bruises," which painfully reminds me of how little time has passed since then. You know, since he was her sworn enemy, and she had the I hate Joshua forever password. But anyways, then Joshua makes a petty comment about Danny, and they give each other the silent treatment like the two 13-year-old main characters they are. They take a break to have dinner, and honestly, this was quite cute for a moment. Lucy's sitting across from Josh and is really looking at him and admiring him and noticing he has little freckles on his nose, which I love. I'm a big Freckles fan. Just to immediately ruin it by saying, and I quote, "You're like a beautiful racehorse." Like, can we not be weird for 1 second? She could have just said, "You're beautiful. You're so handsome." Like anything normal. Just a normal compliment, please. The rest of the drive, they have a very honest conversation, basically saying they like each other, and Lucy tells Josh the truth about her dirty dream. He mentions thinking her date was fake. She admits it was, and that she only asked Danny after. Josh gets mad at this, asking if he's really that hard to read, and tells her that it was supposed to be them two at the bar, basically saying he was asking her out. But why not just do that? They arrive at the hotel where the wedding reception will take place. Joshua tells Lucy he tried to get her her own room, but there was only a certain amount of rooms reserved for the wedding guests. Lucy now mentions seeing the receptionist having to be comforted by the supervisor, I guess because Josh yelled at them. What a dream guy, am I right? And then we get this beautiful paragraph. When we find our room, he takes 4 tries to get the swipe card into the door handle. I take 2 attempts to get past him when he holds the door open, but when I accidentally bump into him, every rounded girly part of me bumps across him like a ball in a pinball machine. Boob, hip, ass. Our bags are deposited, Josh tips, the door shuts, and we are alone. What? Well, they're in the hotel room now, and we get an entire page of what Lucy thinks Josh will be like and do to her just for him to get called by his mom because he's supposed to be helping her. He leaves, and Lucy puts on her Sleepy Saurus shirt, which I believe was a shirt that says Sleepy Saurus with a dinosaur on it. She then looks at herself and says that she looks about 10 years old. And let's all remember what she wants to do when Josh gets back. Sleep with him. Why did the author think of writing this? It's so weird and icky. But luckily she falls asleep before he gets back. They wake up and they have such a lovely chat about ex-partners and whatnot, and they're just overall very coupley. Lucy's last boyfriend was a short guy, and Josh's last girlfriend was a tall blonde woman, because of course they were polar opposites. And we get a hint that Josh's last girlfriend probably broke up with him for a nice guy. Oh no, how could she want that in a man? They get ready to leave, and Lucy actually picked out a dress the same color as Josh's bedroom walls, which she later tells him, calling herself a freak for it. But of course, he just tells her she looks beautiful. They get to the chapel, and Lucy meets Josh's parents. His mom is incredibly lovely, and his dad is cold and brooding and totally reminds her of Josh. The ceremony is beautiful. Lucy cries and afterwards wonders why people are looking at Josh speculatively, but of course never thinks about this more. And now I don't know if this is just me being an overthinker, but I would be thinking so much more about why people were looking weirdly and why everyone keeps mentioning that the wedding is hard for Joshua. Lucy does not give it another thought though, and just thinks it's because Josh is the only one that's not a doctor. Remember that Dr. Josh nickname? Makes sense now that it was just rubbing that fact in. Josh shows Lucy off to all the guests, and she's beginning to think that he's being a bit weird for it. Honestly, I find it amusing what they chose to find weird versus what's just accepted as normal behavior. Him staying the night to help her when she's sick after they've been sworn enemies forever. What a kind and caring man. Him being all lovey-dovey at the wedding when he's clearly shown interest in her already. Weird. He must have a motive here. Josh's dad makes a speech at dinner and says, "You've chosen an outstanding temple man to marry to Mindy, Patrick's bride." Lucy notices something off about the speech and pulls Josh aside after the tension at the table becomes too weird to ask him about it all. He goes to the bathroom though, leaving her to mingle until he's back, and she realizes she hasn't even talked to Mindy yet. And this is where we learn the shocking plot twist that no one has seen coming at this point. Mindy and Josh dated for a year, and now she is marrying his brother. Oh my god. Lucy gets insanely upset after hearing this and runs out to the garden, but of course, someone comes running after her, and it's Josh's mom. She tells his mom that she believes Josh was just playing a game this whole time because everything they do is a game, and of course she's hurt because she has feelings for him now. And honestly, I can't even blame her for thinking this here because it's been, 2 weeks since this all started? Josh comes to talk to her and tells her that he does not care about the whole Mindy thing and she wasn't right for him. And he says he didn't tell her because he thought she would react exactly like this and think that it was all an act. She doesn't believe that he genuinely wanted to take her and heads back to the hotel where she calls, guess who, Danny, to talk about work stuff though, because he's still helping her with her project. He does ask, however, what she's wearing, and she's telling him she's wearing a blue dress, before Joshua appears, rips the phone from her hands, and tells Danny not to call her again, which is just so ew. Lucy says she wants to take a bus back home, but Josh insists they talk about all of this. Thankfully, one part where these characters are actually acting like adults. And Josh tells Lucy that the fact he wanted her there as moral support was actually always about the doctor thing, that he has a very complicated relationship with his father, who always preferred older brother Patrick, the golden child, while Joshua was kind of forgotten by him. Lucy realizes that Josh is that mean tough guy at work because he's secretly insecure and shy. Josh's dad never noticed how hard he tried or how good he was at his job, and Josh mentions that before the merger, he wanted to quit every day, but now that Lucy is there, the job has some redeeming qualities. Lucy decides to forgive him and that she does not want to leave early. And after this deep and meaningful talk, and after 300 pages of this book, they finally have sex, and of course, it is the most amazing thing ever, and no guys has ever been this good. We get it. The next morning, they do it again in the shower, and then they go to have breakfast with Josh's family. They chat, they joke around a bit, except for Josh's dad, of course, because he's just a dick. Lucy leaves for like 2 minutes to get coffee, and when she comes back, Josh and his dad are fighting. So when Lucy hears the way Josh's dad talks about him, she fully goes off on him and has a little girl boss moment, and after an entire monologue from her, apparently the entire room sits with their mouths open and someone begins to clap but quickly stops. Thank God. Honestly, from this book, I wouldn't have been surprised if the entire room stood and applauded her, but thankfully they didn't. She does leave by telling Josh's dad that it's been real, which I did cringe at, as well as her being told by the cashier that there's no charge because, lady, that was better than theater. Also, don't even worry because the applause does come when they kiss outside. Who's clapping there, genuinely? Lucy and Joshua drive back home, and Lucy realizes she's in love with Joshua as she falls asleep in his car. When they arrive, they get up to Josh's apartment, and Lucy is literally about to book it, having a full-on freak-out about being in love with Josh, being in love with him after 2 weeks as well. And I don't really understand why she's freaking out about this, but honestly, it's Lucy, so at this point, I'm not surprised. Thankfully, Joshua at least knows how to act like an adult sometimes and sits her down to ask her what's going on, and she says she's having some scary thoughts and feelings, and then asks him what the marks in his calendar mean, which we finally find out now. So he would record whether she's wearing a dress or a skirt. He made a mark when she smiled at someone else, and also when he wished he could kiss her. I don't think I have to explain how incredibly weird that is. They talk about how the promotion will be decided the next week, and Lucy decides to stay the night. They make out in his bedroom, and Josh apologizes for being so mean to her and hurting her in the past, saying it was just his default setting. She says she's scared he'll hurt her because he hates her, and he says that he has always loved her. Then, to prove it, asks her what his favorite color is. She replies by saying it's the blue he painted his walls, and he drags her to his mirror where she realizes it is the color of her eyes. He painted his room the color of her eyes a week after meeting her. Are we supposed to think this is romantic? Because to me, it felt creepy as hell. He also tells her that they actually will not be up for the promotion against each other because he resigned and is going to start working for the rival company since they've been wanting him forever anyways. They're being all lovey-dovey, and Lucy says she's going to have to change her password now to I love Josh, to which he replies with forever, because of course he cracked her stupid password, and Lucy realizes that with all of this, the hating game is over. So now that we've finished talking about the entire plot of this book, and me crashing out like a million times in the process, there are still some things that I found incredibly annoying that I want to discuss now. Because it wasn't just one particular scenes, it was like little bits adding up over the entire book. And number one, I feel like most people reading this book will notice this, is how many times it gets mentioned how short Lucy is. She mentions that he was looking her up and down upon the first meeting, which didn't take long since she's only 5 feet tall, and her mom says no one can hate her because she's little and cute. When she's sick and he holds his hand to her forehead, she mirrors him before sliding her hand down to his neck, thinking about how sometimes she'd think about strangling him, but his throat is too big for her tiny hands. At some point, he says to her, "I like how little you are. I will throw up violently right now." And she says he is too much for this little pipsqueak. She also mentions her tiny knees becoming weak later on in the book. I cannot describe to you how disgusted I felt the more those types of scenes just kept coming up, and combining it with herself saying that she looks 10 years old in her pajamas. Ew, it's just so ew. You know what I mean? At the same time, she keeps insulting like any other guy than Josh for their heights and builds, and to me it just feels so strange how much the author thought it would be fine to basically shame guys for being short and skinny. I just genuinely felt disgusted at times with how much we were pushed to believe that Joshua is like the most attractive guy in the world, and obviously this can only be the case because he's tall and muscular. Further on, and now this I mentioned very shortly at the beginning, is that they both are so jealous all the time. Lucy's jealous about a waitress at the diner they stop at for food. Joshua is jealous of Danny, and also a guy at the hotel bar. He then comes and like scoops her up in his arm, and the guy is like, "Oh, sorry, bro," and it's just all incredibly weird because they're not dating. Lucy's jealous of Mindy, of course, and she's also very jealous of a receptionist when they check out, even though the receptionist is probably just nice to Josh because it is her fucking job. Like, Lucy is all upset and has a little monologue in her head like, "Oh my god, she's offering him this reward program of the hotel because he's so attractive." Like, no, that's just what she has to do for her job, actually. He's not all that. He is not all that. But to the author, this is an excuse to insult this woman's appearance, saying her lipstick is too pink and calling her a hotel Barbie. Ew. But actually, talking about women, Lucy has no female friends, or friends in general, other than Danny, her bestie. Women are really mainly mentioned for jealousy reasons, which to me is just so annoying. Like, I hate that in a book. Lucy would have so needed a friend to talk about this whole situation. And it is mentioned that she used to have a best friend, but that as the merger happened, Lucy kept her job, the friend didn't, and that was the end of that friendship, which again, grown adults acting like this, come on. Then there's the whole nice guy thing, and Josh being all upset that a woman would want to be with a nice guy. I do not understand how this could genuinely be a plotline where we should feel bad for Joshua that a woman will choose a man that is nice to her. He is like 30 years old in this book. I think he should have the emotional maturity level to understand that if women want nice guys, which I think is very valid, maybe he needs to change something about himself. Mindy literally mentions to Lucy that she found his moods to be scary sometimes, which is one of the reasons they broke up. And how am I supposed to not stand with Mindy here? Like, I'm not gonna tell a woman, oh, you were scared of your boyfriend? No, it's because he's so shy and insecure. Stay with him, please. In total, I just think it is a shame how this story was written because it genuinely had so much potential with the tropes going on. We have like office romance, fake dating, enemies to lovers, and I feel like this could have been such a fun read, but I feel like the tension got sucked out so early because they didn't really hate each other for so long. The hating game really ended after the first few chapters, and then after that, it just kind of felt like the story was just being dragged out as long as possible. I also thought it was a shame that Josh didn't even hate her to begin with. Like, I feel like it could have made for a much more interesting dynamic. But one part I actually did like, and I do feel like I have to mention this, is that Josh helps Lucy stand up to her colleagues. I mentioned this at the beginning, but she always extends her deadlines, she's staying late as a result of that. She's a people pleaser. Now, I thought it was a cool idea to help her build that confidence, but sadly, it just felt kind of rushed. There were like 2 scenes establishing her being a people pleaser, and then one where she just fully stands up for herself and is super firm. And maybe if more of this book actually took part at work, this storyline could have been fleshed out and explored more. But, oh well. In general, this book just made me cringe so many times, and after rereading it to make this video, I just stand by my Goodreads rating more than ever. I mean, I reduced it from 2 stars to 1. I stand by that 1 star. And now I do have to end this video because I'm just so intrigued to see this major motion picture. I actually do want to see what kind of movie they could have possibly made of this book. But yeah, I know this is a super long video, and I don't usually do videos this long, but I just kind of felt it would be fun because I personally enjoy these kinds of videos a lot. I hope you do too. So yeah, let me know if there's any other books you would like me to review. Let me know what you thought of this book. If you've read it, what you rated it, like if you liked it, maybe someone, like I'm so open to hearing other people's opinion on this. So if you did actually enjoy reading this, or if you enjoyed the movie, please, like, just drop it down in the comments. I'm so intrigued to hear everyone's opinion. And yeah, with that, you can watch another one of my videos right here. You can subscribe to me here, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Bye, everyone! Mwah!